Welcome to the Beau Show. California is in prime focus right now because even if you aren't in California or a California voter, the state bears great significance at the moment for a number of reasons. The state's voters have decided to mount an effort to recall incumbent Governor Gavin Newsom. This has been attempted 6 times with Newsom, but the last successful recall in California was in 2003 when Gray Davis was recalled and replaced by Republican Arnold Schwarzenegger. So it is possible. The recall attempts looked a little bleak until conservative Larry Elder declared his candidacy, which made things really interesting. Elder is a black conservative, which is a scary prospect to liberals like Newsom. We've seen a rise of prominent black conservatives of late, from Ben Carson to Tim Scott to Byron Donalds. And these office holders have been formidable and principled. Elder has long been one of these voices, especially as a conservative media figure. Media figures are often courted to run for office, everyone from Rush Limbaugh to Glenn Beck to Tucker Carlson. But I can understand why they'd prefer to be on the outside speaking truth. What political candidates and legislators have to go through is hell. They drag your reputation and family through the mud. And Elder is no exception. And I'll get to that later. But Gavin Newsom has a rough record to run on. That's why he's in so much trouble right now. Plus, everyone recalls the famous incident at the French Laundry, which showed the pinnacle of his hypocrisy. The recall vote is scheduled for September 14th, and there are 2 questions the voters have to answer. The first is whether Gavin Newsom should be recalled, and the second is who should replace him. For this reason, Newsom and his acolytes and surrogates are trying to cut this off at the pass by voting no on the first question. A simple majority is required for the first question, and then whoever gets the most votes in the second question is the winner. Those who are in favor of the recall point to Newsom's mishandling of the COVID pandemic, homelessness, sanctuary city policies, power outages, and water rationing. And related to the COVID situation is school choice. And that very well could be what decides this election. You have a lackluster Democratic base and an enthusiastic Republican base, which could spell trouble for Newsom. Newsom knows this, which is why he's pulling out all the stops right now. But the truth is that he just doesn't have a lot of fervent support. Former Democratic State Senator Gloria Romero has actually crossed party lines and supports Elder over this very issue. 2 years ago, about 63% of Hispanics voted for Gavin Newsom, and now over half of them want Newsom recalled. That's a seismic shift. Nearly half of 3rd graders in California could not read at state-level proficiency, and that was before the pandemic began. So education is going to be a big part of this election, and Elder is right to make it a critical issue. Elder says that the money should follow the child, not the system. Elder says that the problem is teachers' unions, not teachers. They are the largest funders of Newsom. They want their dues. During the pandemic, 20,000 convicted felons were released early as well. In addition, housing costs in California are out the roof. Because of environmentalists, developments have been limited in California, and the average cost of a home in the state of California is now $800,000. Can you believe that? Elder is right to point out that both the felon release and the skyrocketing housing prices affect the very communities that Democrats claim they care about, minorities. Elder also points out that Newsom is the only major politician to have praised Joe Biden over his handling of the Afghanistan disaster, which is almost unfathomable. But Biden and Kamala Harris see California's potentially slipping out of their hands because Kamala went to Cali to stump for Newsom, and Biden has been vocalizing it as well. But the issue of school choice is a biggie, and its effects ripple across the country, especially as we begin to think about midterms. I've made the point in past episodes that this pandemic presented us with challenges and different styles of leadership. In the case of Newsom and many Democrats, they support the teachers' unions, which is no surprise considering that they are a huge source of their campaign money. But shouldn't the money follow the child, not the union? Wouldn't that make the most practical sense? Well, that's what Larry Elder thinks, and I think that is resonating with voters, especially Hispanic voters. Teachers' unions also protect bad teachers. And when it comes to mask mandates and similar measures, Newsom is allowing the unions, not the parents, to make those choices. We have seen this with critical race theory as well, and a plethora of angry parents at school board meetings. And take a look at Sacramento AP history teacher Gabriel Gipe, which Project Veritas has exposed. This teacher openly uses the public school system to turn his students into Marxist revolutionaries. Take a look.
Sacramento organization that is under the banner of Antifa is very loosely organized, right? So like, yeah, when there is like right-wing rallies and stuff, then we'll create an opposition to that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Where would he go to connect to some of these organizations?
No, I post a calendar every week.
Awesome.
And then and I do it for extra credit, so they get points for doing it. So that encourages them to do it. And I've had students show up for protests, community events, tabling, food distribution, all sorts of things. When they go, they take pictures, they write up a reflection. That's their extra credit. I have an Antifa flag on my wall, and a student complained about that, and he said it made him feel uncomfortable. Well, this is meant to make fascists feel uncomfortable. So if you feel uncomfortable, I don't really know what to tell you. Maybe you shouldn't be aligning with the values that this is antithetical to. So the Cultural Revolution in the 60s was fixing the problem that came about after the economic one.
Is this the type of teacher you want teaching your kids AP history? Giving extra credit for going to Antifa rallies? That's exactly what Larry Elder is talking about. How did teachers like this get into the system? According to the superintendent, this teacher is on his way to being fired. But had it not been for Project Veritas, this guy would still be indoctrinating, not teaching, his students. The LA Times, which is supposed to just report the news, has gone full tilt biased, recognizing the threat Elder poses to Newsom. Here are some of their recent headlines. Larry Elder talks a lot. Too bad you can't believe anything he says. Here's another one. If Larry Elder gets elected, life will get harder for Black and Latino Californians. And the last one, and most revolting, Larry Elder is the black face of white supremacy. You've been warned. That is just incendiary. It's hard to imagine any headline in any paper saying that about someone, particularly if it were a Democrat. It just doesn't happen. The opening line in this horrific hit piece reads, quote, Larry Elder smiled the smug smile of a black conservative who could very well be liberal California's next governor, unquote. The author calls him skinfolk, not kinfolk. Larry Elder went to school in rough neighborhoods in LA. He's the so-called sage from South Central. It scares Newsom. It's his kryptonite. In turn, Newsom is firing all his artillery at Elder, saying that he's anti-vax and that he's also a climate change denier. Both are untrue. Larry Elder is vaccinated. He also called climate change paranoia a hoax. Then CNN and Politico led with a story about Elder brandishing a firearm in an argument with his former girlfriend. He denies that categorically. Watching the LA Times just blast Elder is a case study in media bias. It is neither fair nor is it accurate. You would think the media would applaud anyone from South Central who made it out alive, much less became a successful pundit and radio host. But no, they attack him as the Black Trump. Here are some of Elder's thoughts on schools.
It is time for parental school choice. The money should follow the child rather than the other way around, so that parents have an opportunity to put their kid in the school they want, whether public, private, religious, or charter. We do this for college and for graduate school, but for some reason there's a no-fly zone when it comes to choice K through 12. That's got to end.
This is a very succinct way of stating his thoughts on the education system. And when half of third graders are not up to state proficiency levels for reading, how can Gavin Newsom and his legislature run on this type of a record? A guy like Elder is just speaking common sense. He has recognized that fewer or reduced penalties lead to more crime. And we all know how bad crime is in California, especially Oakland and certain areas of LA. We know that Democrats have embraced sanctuary city policies, becoming havens for illegal immigrants. You may recall the tragic killing of Kate Steinle in San Francisco, which led to the creation of Kate's Law. Steinle was shot by a 7-time felon who is illegally in the U.S. Similar laws would allow victims to sue the cities that have these sanctuary policies. And on the issue of race, Elder is spot on with his statistics. He recognizes that the murder of black people, and specifically black men, is at the hands of other black men, not white police officers. Look at Chicago alone for that evidence. And that's a hard fact for many in the media to face, even Harvey Levin over at TMZ. Take a look.
Yeah, they've had black mayors. The police chief is a black female, and you're still talking about systemic racism. It's ridiculous. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, really. You're making the country worse.
We actually, Larry, I'm going to be very clear about something. Hold on, Charles. I sleep just fine. I am not ashamed of myself. And maybe you do too, and that's fine. So we're going to disagree on this.
Maybe you should be. Maybe you should be, Larry, because there is a problem.
The facts are on my side.
There is a problem in this country, and you are relying on statistics, and you are not looking at humanity,
It's called
Larry.
facts. It's called facts.
And as Ben Shapiro famously says, facts don't care about your feelings. This is a typical demarcation with conservatives and liberals. Conservatives will point to facts, which are not subjective, and liberals will point to emotion, which is entirely subjective. And here is Harvey Levin saying that Larry Elder should be ashamed of himself for not having any humanity. But Elder is able to come right back to indisputable facts. It's been a winning tactic for Democrats in the past, appealing to emotions. It's why the Democrat Party has been able to control that voting bloc. They promise, but never deliver. So Larry Elder is this sage that says that facts don't support this narrative. He is TNT to California liberals who can't face the music. In many ways, he is a black Donald Trump, at least in the sense that he presents arguments that either no one has thought of or defies the mainstream thought. Even Donald Trump said to minorities, "What do you have to lose?" And he was right to say that. In the case of Newsom's recall, Californians have a lot to lose. Maybe their freedom, their choices, their ability to let the money follow the child, even education itself with respect to indoctrination. Californians really do have a lot on the line here. And Larry Elder is presenting a massive shift in thinking. And if you go by the record of Democrat governors and leaders in the state, the stats are appalling. Life has not gotten better for the average Californian. So it makes you wonder, why would any voter, white, black, Hispanic, or Asian, not want to recall Newsom and give someone else a chance? It's the same logic that follows cities like Minneapolis and Portland and New York and Detroit. If you've had the same style of governance for decades and your crime is worse, your taxes are higher, your streets are less safe, your schools are worse, your roads are bad, your small business is ruined, and your freedom is reduced, why in the world would you vote for that same type of leader ever again? Listen to the way he is able to present a cogent argument with respect to black-on-black crime.
I think you could probably find evidence that, in general, cops are more willing to shoot if the perpetrator is black than white.
What's your basis for saying that? Last year...
Well, look, I know a lot of people would say, look what's going on in Chicago.
I know what they would say.
Yeah.
I'm talking about what the facts are. 965 people were shot by cops last year and killed. 4% of them were white cops shooting unarmed blacks. In Chicago in 2011, 21 people were shot and killed by cops. In 2015, there were 7. In Chicago, which is a third black, a third white, and a third Hispanic, 70% of the homicides are black on black. About 40 per month, almost 500 per year last year in Chicago, and 75% of them are unsolved. Where is the Black Lives Matter on that? The idea that a racist white cop and shooting unarmed black people is a peril to black people is BS. It's complete and total BS. And the reason for these so-called activists saying this is the assumption that racism remains a major problem in America. The media, CNN, especially MSNBC, runs down whenever a black cop shoots somebody, and it's some march on Washington. It's ridiculous. Black people, half the homicides in this country are committed by and against black people. Last year there were 14,000 homicides. I'm not talking about suicides. I'm talking about homicides. Half of them were black, 96% of them black on black of that 7,000. Where's the Black Lives Matter people on that?
I don't know if I've ever heard someone who would analyze these statistics in such detail. Have you? His command of facts is pretty astounding. And I think he does it because he knows that media pundits are trying to marginalize him. Look at how Harvey Levin acted. Most media pundits are too scared to have him on their programs. They simply can't do enough to outthink or out-research him. Yet Gavin Newsom is up there with every black person he can find to speak for him, acting like he's their best friend, in the most wooden, awkward, and cringy way, desperate to get votes. But he can't run on a record. His vaccine rollout was bungled. He had spikes in LA even when it was totally locked down. A third of small businesses will never come back. And it got so bad that many businesses ditched California for places like Texas and Florida. On a sheer objective level, why would Californians want more of that? Furthermore, if we look at identity politics, wouldn't Cali want to have its first black governor? Why is it that it's only championed when that person is a Democrat? Shouldn't the LA Times headline be, California could elect its first black governor? But no, they've been using their ink to stigmatize and dog him in every way possible. Democrats call this the Republican recall. Well, that's not accurate. There are clearly voters out there who are not Republican who are backing this. The latest polling showed it right at about 50%. Most of California is blue, deep blue, which means there are certainly some defections. And if Newsom is recalled, Elder likely will have the most votes since there is no real Democratic challenger on the ballot. They've gone all in for Newsom, which is kind of stupid because if he's recalled by a simple majority, he's out. I think Elder is winning especially on this issue of schools and school choice. Parents all across America have become fed up that their kids are not being educated properly and that they are losing control. This comes at the hands of teachers' unions. So Larry Elder presents this radically different idea, a sensible one, that the money should follow the child. It's resonating, and it may be the watershed moment for the rest of the country in their next voting decisions. We know that Joe Biden's numbers are bleeding badly. It could be a home run for Republicans. But winning in a deep, deep blue state like California is a big deal. Caitlyn Jenner was someone that, would attract a lot of attention, but Elder has more of a shot. He's someone that Republicans can get excited about and someone that independents or defecting Democrats can consider. Elder's platform is common sense, and he's been talking about it for years. It's not like he just came out of nowhere. On crime, on sanctuary cities, on education, on freedom. He represents this beacon of hope for a state that has fallen by the wayside. What has Newsom done about the tent cities or the average price of a home? To be honest, what in the world is Gavin Newsom running on? Leadership and governance require sound ideas and policies, things that actually make a difference. And I think Larry Elder has thought these things through. He presents clear arguments and solutions. And I think there's a real opportunity for him with minorities who've been left behind by Gavin Newsom. Anytime you go to the voting booth, you have to think about what choice you make and how that leader could make your life better. I recall Gavin Newsom saying that Larry Elder was an attack on our values. Well, he's likely speaking for himself, but he acts as though his values are the whole state's values, and that's simply untrue. Do Andrew Cuomo's values reflect the values of the entire state of New York? I sure hope not. But look what it took for him to step down. While the Republican did not take over New York, New Yorkers will have to think about that in the future. As someone who once lived in the state of California, I would have to think about what would entice me to ever live there again. I can't think of a lot of persuading factors. But for the first time in a very long time, the voters may be wising up with this recall. It sounds like about half are unhappy and want to change. If the recall happens, I think Larry Elder is the next governor of California and would trigger and signal a referendum on voting habits. Pendulums will shift after a while. Joe Biden's numbers are underwater. Newsom is unpopular. He hasn't made a good case. If Elder wins, it will be because voters are sick of Newsom and want something new, the way voters wanted something new in 2016 with Donald Trump. And it's clear that people won't be voting for Elder because he's black. The LA Times is making sure that doesn't happen. It'll be because his ideas and his philosophies present a better alternative, which is exactly how it should be. If Elder were a black Democrat, the headlines would be entirely opposite from what they are right now. They'd be cheering and applauding this opportunity. Instead, they put a target on his back. They become propaganda for Newsom. So in many ways, voters can make their voices heard by challenging the prevailing narrative in California and take that power back. As I've said before, there is a pandemic of stupidity going around. And there's no vaccine for that, but there is a remedy, which is doing your research, educating yourself, and making smart voting decisions. That doesn't mean it all has to be for one political party. There are bad ones on both sides. But to blindly accept the narrative, to vote based on redundancy and incumbency and expecting a better result, does not change your life for the better. There's a lot of material out there by Larry Elder that you can watch and you can listen to in order to get insight into his philosophy and his aims. You don't always get that with candidates. And if Larry becomes the next governor of California and saves it, it'll be because voters bucked the status quo and were willing to give another person a chance to make California great again. I'm Beau, and that's the show.